I am kind of just disappointed in a couple of things. And yeah, so essentially what happened was I can talk about it in a more detailed video at some point in the future once this gets resolved and my overall thoughts on it. But essentially, I think this is the catalyst that is going to really force me to move away completely from the prop firm industry and probably never look back at the industry. I have absolutely no interest in getting back into it. Well, I guess I'm kind of still in, kind of. I have accounts. I've never lost the accounts, but I'm just going to slowly stop using them, is what I'm getting at. And so, like, long story short, I really thought about this as like, a way to substantially increase the capital that I could utilize in like a faster manner than building it up yourself. And I was like, okay, 80% splits this, or a couple little rules here and there, that, not a big deal. But as time has gone on, what I've recognized with not just one, not just two, but now my fingers don't work, three different companies, it's all the same thing. And obviously it's a game, they're not here for us to benefit. They benefit off of us, or people like myself or you or whoever, failing challenges. And while I've never failed a challenge on any of the accounts that I've owned, the realities of using them just become less and less attractive based off new rules, adjustments that they slowly are making. And essentially when you sign these contracts, you don't really have a choice. Like, you sign the contract, and many times inside of that, they have the discretion, the ability to change the rules in the middle of the game, essentially. And you kind of have to suck it up. Like, you kind of have no say. You don't have an opportunity to say, oh, I want out. And I kind of did on the first prop firm that I used. I think I made like $2,500 with them, or I made, that's how much money like on paper I made, because you're not using real accounts, at least with these prop firms. And then they changed the rules, and they completely just eradicated the tradable assets that I was using, at the time. And I was like, whoa, like, I literally bought this account to trade these assets that you had, and like, now I can't. Like, what's up with that? And they gave me the runaround, told me that, you're not gonna, we can't refund you, etc. And so I didn't threaten them, but I kind of just posted about it on, at the time, Twitter. And I think I made a video talking about it. I don't know if they ever saw the video, to be honest with you, but probably did. Someone probably did. And the video was by no means like completely trashing them, but like, it was just, recounting my experience and what happened and why I just like, this makes no sense. And the more I kind of think about it, the more I see like, yeah, like, this is just an added negative, an added downside to these, to these prop firms, right? That, or to these accounts, or to this game, that it ultimately is hard enough as it is. And what kind of gets me, what grinds my gears, is the fact that I had been essentially like 6 years in the making, 6 years in the making to kind of figure out like, okay, this is the strategy that best suits me. And then here's how we actually trade. The past 2 years, really, I've kind of like honed in on it. And then now I'm like, the past 2 years, pretty much solely trading it. The first of the 2 years, I was like, okay, let's see, gather the data, boom. The second of the 2 years, has been like a slow scaling progression. And I was like pumped because I'm like super excited with where it's at. I'm like, okay, I've finally got the strategy kind of dialed in. And now it's like, let's just kind of take our time and like just scale it up little by little. And so enter prop firms, right, to help that process, or to speed that process up. And what you end up finding, or what I found, and maybe you can sit back and some will say, I told you so. That's fine. What you end up finding is that there really isn't a shortcut, you know, because with the prop firm space comes a lot of downsides, as I kind of hinted at in terms of some of those rules. But what I'll talk about now, by not naming any names, because it doesn't matter, like you probably can figure it out, but who cares, you know? And I've also learned to kind of stay pretty chill, pretty calm about this stuff. This is probably the I might disclose it more in the future in more detail and explain the whole situation if it makes sense. But you know, you can get caught up in lawsuits and stuff, which really is crazy to think about. Like crazy, just coming from a guy who's just trying to get access to a few extra bucks to trade while he pays off his student debt. Think about that, right? But I've been threatened, you know, with that type of stuff before, and so I don't want that to happen again. A, but also B, like I also know, you know, I know what I'm saying, and I hopefully can keep myself in check to be able to, like, you know, to not say anything stupid that could put myself in jeopardy from that perspective. But as time went on with this recent prop firm, you know, and the interest of like buying bigger accounts, what ended up happening was they started changing rules, and it starts a little at a time, and then it becomes more and more, and then it becomes just completely like you can't even use this. And so what ended up happening is, as I bought the bigger accounts that I recently bought, some fine print rules that I honestly I pride myself in saying I will never lose one. I will never lose one of these accounts due to some bullshit rules. Like, I'm going to read the rules. I'm going to read everything about this shit, and I'm going to buy the account, and like, I'm going to know. Like, I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm not going to get there and say, oh shit, I didn't know the daily drawdown was 3. I thought it was 2 or 4 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I knew all the numbers. I knew all the numbers had to be, you know, restrictive of like, okay, well, yes, the account size is 200,000, but based off of these numbers, based off how much they're allowing me to risk total, it's a lot tighter than I thought, or than maybe other accounts. I got to keep my position sizes much smaller so I can only risk this much money per trade, etc. And so that's what I did. But what I've come to find is that some of the rules have changed, and on different accounts, they changed the rules substantially to the point where like this is not even usable, makes no sense, and I'm just going to move on. You know what I mean? Pretty much. And so what I mean by that is, think about like, you know, trading is hard enough. And then someone tells you, okay, well, you got to keep yourself within these bounds of risk and stuff. Okay, fine. And then they start saying, well, now you can't lose more than 1% per trade or on any given trade. Okay, fine. You know, whatever. Starts to say, well, now I can't scale the account. So, you know, it's like, okay, it's going to be kind of capped. Fine, whatever. Okay, cool. It's still going to give me more money than I had before. Cool. And then they say, your trades can't be less than 2 minutes long, ever. Like, you can never have a trade less than 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, mate. You know, it's possible that you get in a trade and it hits your stop loss immediately. It's right, but it's possible. Like, I've had some 5-minute charts that do that. I don't trade that 5-minute chart time from anymore, really, or very often. It's possible, but I'm like, okay, probably fine, right? But what if you made a mistake and you forgot? All right, so you got to keep that rule in the back of your head. And then if you don't enter a stop loss within 15 seconds, your account gets taken, it's breached. Like, okay, 15 seconds. All right, like, you know, I usually put my stop loss on when I take the trade, but okay, I guess, yeah, you know, whatever. Maybe I forget though, and if I forgot by accident, I lose the account. Oh, it's kind of a pretty big deal right now. The stakes are kind of high for that. Okay, can't trade within 20 minutes of high impact news. Well, then what? But with no definition of what high impact news is. Okay, well now, what's high impact news? Well, what if I was in a trade that I've been swinging and then they say, and then Powell speaks, and I didn't realize that, or, you know, there's CPI, every day has high impact news. You could make an argument that a lot of days have high impact news. Well, now, if my take profit or stop loss hits within that 20-minute span of whatever they classify as high impact news, it's subjective, possibly, then I can lose the account. Oh, okay, well, that's not really good. Can't hold trades over the weekend. Oh, okay, no more holding over the weekend. Well, what if I'm in a swing trade and then it takes me, on average, I was just looking at my trade the past year and a half, my average hold time is around 9 days on my swing trades. Not only when I swing. But okay, well, that's on average going to be over the weekend. Okay, well, it doesn't make sense. So, you know, you start, and then their piece to it, No copy trading. Even if it's your own account, even if you are copying from your own account, can't do it. So now you add all these things up, and a lot of these things were the reasons kind of why I went this route that are now no longer available. And I say, okay, like, what is the point of this? This no longer fits my, style at all. This no longer makes sense. And as I've come to realize over time that all of these things, or a lot of these things, are almost necessary, like, and you need to have them because you're going to forget the stop loss one day, or you're going to have to hold over the weekend sometimes. And sometimes you're going to have to get out of trades really quick because you made a mistake and you'd rather get out within the first, within a minute or two, then hold it and then sit in the, like, there's a lot of these things that's like, okay, man, does the shit I have to sit through, does that pay, or does that make sense for what the potential rewards could be by using this account? And I start to say, man, not really. And to be honest, no, so it's kind of shitty, but it's like, yeah, this is it was the catalyst. It was coming at some point. I knew it was going to come because it was a means like to an end, kind of like, it was not the end goal. The end goal is to just trade your own capital. But the thought process to me was, as I was paying off, I had over $200,000 in debt at one point, like well over 200,000, maybe even close to 250. I don't even know. At the time, like, that I first looked into these prop firms, I was like, yo, I got to just pay this debt off as fast as possible. I got a 6.5% interest rate, whatever the number was. Actually, I had a 10% variable rate on one of my loans. Like, fucking crazy. But, when rates were really pushing. Now I got a 6 on the last, chunk, or one of the last chunks. It's split up, I guess. But, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to tie up capital, to trade my own capital. It makes sense to simply just trade someone else's capital and utilize a couple $100 and go for it. But in the grand scheme, I did spend probably like $2,500 maybe total on all these accounts, which isn't really that much money. And I lost none of them. It's just, I got a refund on one of them, actually, I guess. Maybe I'll get a refund on these recent two. I doubt, that's how these companies work. They don't give you refunds, right? That's what they say. I got some stuff on them, not stuff on them, but I got some stuff that like makes me question them a lot, and it's in writing, it's documented. So we'll see, what that ever does. But, in the grand scheme, it kind of is what it is. And so that's the situation. But going forward, so what the plan is, and the good thing, like, this is all, in my view, a good thing, because there needed to be a catalyst at some point. Didn't know when it was going to be, but there needed to be a catalyst at some point to kind of propel me out of this stuff, because at the end of the day, it is holding you back in a sense with the restrictions and the rules and this and that. It's holding you back. So the plan is, now I'm going to fund a Webull account. You need $2,000 in there at a minimum to utilize margin. So I'm going to probably fund it between maybe $2,500, $3,000 initially. And then slowly but surely from there, build it up while I'm, paying a lot of other shit off. And just build it and trade that thing and be able to use margin. Trade size will maybe not be as big as I want it to be, but it'll be decent size because I mostly swing trade now. And when I say that, I mean, like, my trades are like, I'm risking, 3 or 4% to make 7, 8, 9, something like that. And so, you can kind of back your way into, throwing a couple $1,000s at those situations and say, okay, you're making a few bucks. So it's not great for what I want to be and where I think I could be at, but it's okay. Another positive factor or piece of this puzzle too is Webull's simple. It's super simple. I'm very familiar with the app. No bullshit. 24-hour trading on so many stocks and ETFs. So it's like kind of cool. You have that ability. You can trade pre-market, trade after hours, which on the prop firm space couldn't do that. You got that. You got more tradable assets. The list is huge. They've got futures. I don't know if I'm going to use futures. I'll probably just use ETFs, to be honest with you. But you have futures on there as well, which probably will be something I'll eventually push into. We'll see. I don't even know. I just like trading shares, honestly. Shares and ETF. I like that. I like that route because it's simple and no time decay. So it's just, that's the game. But yeah, the plan is to build that up. And who knows? There's no pressure, how much to make, how fast. I don't care. It ain't going to be the way that we're going to roll. But yeah, and then as time goes on, right, once the debts are paid and once I have more cash, I'm making more money than I was, 2 years ago, for sure, 3 years ago, a year ago even. Cross our fingers that continues, if that's the case, great. We'll have more money to fund the account little by little over time to slowly scale it up. And obviously, if you're profitable, you'll scale the account as well. So, you have a couple trades, not in a row, obviously, but let's say that over the course of the next, of the rest of this year, let's say the next 9 months, we go through the period where, we can make a few percent, on the account. Great. You can fund some extra money of your own funds in. Great. And now you're talking about slowly scaling it up little by little, and that's the game, So that's where my head's at. It's probably going to be a step back, in terms of trade size and what I want in the short term, but in the long term, the scalability is better and the freedom is there. You know what I mean? When it's your funds, obviously, yes, Webull has my funds, right? But I think we can trust Webull a lot more than some of these prop firms in terms of keeping my account alive, not violating rules. There's no rules other than just keeping money in the account and, any margin calls, I guess. But I'm not going to have really an issue with that. I don't suspect. So that's where we're at, man. Long road with the prop. It's been about a year and a half. I started in October of 2023. Yeah, it was my first prop firm, I think. And, made money. I mean, thousands of dollars we made. Was it all mine? No, because challenge levels, and then there were some profits I took out, obviously over the course of the way. But passing challenges was most of where that money was, and so it sucks that you kind of get to the end of passing all these challenges and oh, we're getting so we're passing them. We got funded accounts now, and now it's time to roll. And now it's time to kind of actually reap the benefits of what we were doing. Boom, here we go. And then this type of stuff happens, that the rules start to change and they completely cater towards almost no one, but they don't cater to my style, my strategy. And it's not surprising, because as I'm kind of finding a lot of similarities with what I'm doing more so, and and other profitable people who I've come across and people who I've heard over time, you go through certain things, and these prop firms know how to set these rules because they know, they have all the stats and the data. They know how to cater the rules to hit the pain points and to hit the things that, someone who is profitable will have to go through, or needs this or wants this. And so it throws you off mentally. Obviously, it adds a second rule or a second layer in there to follow. It's hard enough to make money as it is consistently, but then add in these little rules and hoops to jump through, and it's just not it. So that's the rant. Hopefully that was that's where my head's at. So it was a good experience, I think, but in the end, what ended up happening really was I got so much data. You know what I mean? I got to trade my strategy. I got to get so much data out of it, and now I have that to roll with. We're gonna have tighter spreads. We're gonna have good spreads. We're not gonna have to worry about any commissions really at all. We're gonna have some good stuff. And no one looking over my shoulder, no one huffing, down my neck, thinking oh, how can we fucking, screw this guy? No, it's just do your thing and just, that's it. So greener pastures ahead, next chapter, and I'm excited to dive deeper into it and to document it a bit, because I think it'll be good in the long run. That's for sure.